We're live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the June 10th, 2024 meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee of the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees. The meeting is being held in person with committee members participating remotely. At this time, Board Secretary Michelle Carreri will conduct a roll call attendance to determine if a quorum is present. Ready to respond present via WebEx or present in person where your name is called.
Vahid Onjazieri,
Present via WebEx.
Armin Sabatoni,
Present via WebEx.
Maria Ducharme, Michael Fascitelli, Joseph Formicola,
Present via WebEx.
Courtney Nicolato, Melissa Sutherland, Mark Parlange.
Present via WebEx.
We have a quorum with 4 voting members, and Board Chair Margot Cook is also present.
And you want to recognize who is
And
also.
Maria, it looks like Maria Ducharme's here. Maria?
Hey, welcome.
Hello.
Good.
Great.
Perfect. So reminder to all the members for the benefit of our audience and the note taker, please clearly identify yourself whenever you comment, make a motion or a second to a motion. Participants using WebEx are required to keep their cameras on as remote members. All persons present at the meeting location must be clearly audible and visible to each other. This time, I would like to acknowledge that the University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping ground of the Narragansett Nation and the Niantic people. Are there any proposed amendments to the published agenda? No. First order of business is approval of the minutes. May I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee approve the minutes of the April 4th, 2024 committee meeting?
This is Armin.
Joe Formicola, so moved.
So we had a first and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion.
Present, so I'll abstain.
Sorry, go ahead.
This is Courtney. I was not present, so I'll abstain.
Okay. There being no other discussion, I ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimously approved. Next item on the agenda is item 2, discussion items. We don't need an action on these, but the first discussion on the review of the enacted state budget. I'm not quite sure whether the budget was, I don't know. Abby?
Hi. Yes, so the budget hasn't been enacted yet, but we anticipate that it will be hopefully this week. But I wanted to give an update on what we've seen come from the House and Senate. So Michelle, I don't know if you have those slides or if you prefer I share.
We have them.
Okay, great.
Get them right now for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. So these are just a few slides to give you an update on what we've learned about our URI FY25 state budget request. So this is a summary of kind of the 3 significant areas that we are focused on. And these numbers are operating budget increase, our RICAP request, and our biomedical sciences GEO bond. So what you see here is what our request is in the first column, what we submitted to OMB. The second column is what the governor recommended. And then the third column is what we understand the legislature will recommend and we hope enact later this week. So the first is an operating budget increase. So this is in addition to, and this is for our general state appropriation in addition to the level amount 105.4 million that we received in FY24. So we had asked in our request for a 32.1 million increase. The governor's recommended budget included a 3.4 million increase, and the legislature increased that by 2 million. And so we're looking at a 5.4 million increase. So it's less than the 32.1 than we had requested, but obviously we're pleased to have an increase from last year. The second line is RICAP, and this is really for asset protection. So this is the money we get annually to help with our asset renewal efforts on campus. Our request was 16.3 million. The governor's recommendation was 14 million, and the legislature will recommend 14 million, equal to what the governor's budget recommended. And then on the biomedical sciences GEO bond, our FY25 request was 87.45 million. The governor recommended 80 million. and the legislature recommended 87.5 million. So we're pleased about that restoration of that full amount and appreciate all the advocacy that has gone into making the case for the importance of that building to URI in the state. Next slide, please. So this is just a breakdown of the operating budget increase. So as I mentioned, you see up in the right-hand corner, the FY24 enacted level was 105.4 million. So this is just provides more detail on the operating budget increase. So we split it into 3 areas that we asked for. Our operating budget shortfall. So coming into the 25 request, we had a 4.1 million shortfall. We didn't get any funding to address that in the governor's budget or the legislature. The current service level is sort of our keep the trains running money that we seek to help pay for utilities and salary and contractual obligations. That was the majority of our request at 24.2 or 27.7 million. And we ended up getting 5.4 million to address current service level. And then we also asked for 14.3 million in strategic initiative requests in 4 buckets related to each priority of our strategic plan. We didn't receive any funding for those strategic initiatives. So this is just more detail on that first line from the prior slide for your information. It also gives you the history of FY24 just as background. I think we have one last slide. So this is particularly around RICAP. So I already mentioned our asset protection is what we use for our asset renewal on campus. We use that to replace roofs and do things along those lines. We asked for 16.3, we received 14 million. I also wanted to point out PFAS. So you may recall going back to FY24 that we had asked for $20 million in RICAP funding to help build a new water treatment plant to address PFAS in the water at URI. We were very pleased that we received $20 million in SFRS funds, so the state fiscal recovery funds, which were ARPA funds. So we've been moving smartly with that funding to try to we're in the process of building a temporary plant. We actually just started working on it here on campus, and we're working on the procurement for a permanent plant. The governor's recommended budget actually shifted the funding source from SFRS funds to back to RICAP, which is what we had originally asked for. And the legislature did recommend the 20 million. So this really isn't a material change up or down. It's just a change in source of funds. Again, we're really thankful for the state support for this project. We think we're going to be a great kind of example for other universities and municipalities that are working on this PFAS water treatment. Any questions on those? All right. I'll let you know.
Let me just ask, I know Mark, we talk about this, but how are we thinking about the gap in the operating budget? I mean, it's like we asked for, what do we ask for, like 50 something and we got 5? So what do we have to do to address that?
So similar to prior years, we've had this operating budget shortfall. So we in terms of sort of a short-term fix, we look at what reserves we have to try to meet our contractual obligations. I would say, as the board knows, we're undergoing the IBB and incentivized budget model development and implementation, which is really going to sort of drastically change how we allocate resources and manage our budget. So I think using our reserves, we'll be able to sort of carry ourselves as we get to this new budget model, which will allow us to. In the process of this year, we've just really been looking at every single piece of our budget, where our expenses are, where our revenue is coming from. And so it's allowing us to do a bit of a reset, which we're all excited about.
Let me ask it this way. So we got 105 in the general budget, 14 million in RICAP, 87 million on a bond, 206 million. How much are we getting? What do you estimate we should get in tuition fees and grants this year?
So the general appropriation is about 20%. So that's I can pull up the exact numbers on the tuition and fees, but it's slightly more than 400 million.
Well, I was going to say about 400.
Yeah, so it's basically a 20-80% split.
Okay. So roughly another 400, well, let's take the 87 out of there. So 109, 119, and 4. So our income is roughly $500 million.
Correct, yeah. So it's
Okay.
slightly higher than that. If you look at all revenue sources, if you look at all of our revenue sources, it's tuition, it's fees, we have gift funds, we have research funds. So, but what I'm talking about is like the unrestricted, which is state appropriation and tuition and fees. That's in the
Okay.
$500 million range.
All right.
Good. Any other questions for Abby on that one? Next item, Abby, is a report of actions taken in executive session.
Great, thank you. So this is a disclosure of an action that was taken in executive session by the URI Board of Trustees at our April meeting. This disclosure is required under Rhode Island general law. The board did approve the purchase of 63 Briar Lane in Kingston, Rhode Island, and approved us to execute on a purchase and sale agreement and all documents related to the acquisition. Briar Lane, 63 Briar Lane is the home currently of Kingston Pizza, if you're familiar with that property. It consists of a 1,900 square foot operational pizza restaurant on 0.17 acres that's surrounded by university land. So it was a strategic purchase for us to have contiguous land at URI. And we are in the process of executing on that. So this is just a disclosure to the board.
I don't think there should be any questions on that since you're at the meeting. I just want to acknowledge Mike Pachatelli has joined us also.
Thank you.
Next item is on the action items. The first action item is approval of University Capital Improvement Plan FY 26 to 2030 and recommendation to the URI Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. So this is, as a reminder, the capital improvement plan is a plan that URI submits to the state of Rhode Island every year. It shows capital projects of $1 million or more in progress or proposed. It's a critical and necessary step in securing funding to support the physical assets of the university and to help, advance our educational and research mission. So the Board of Trustees has 2 opportunities to review the SIP. The first is in April, which is a discussion, and then the upcoming meeting in June, which is approval. And so the goal of this item today is to seek the Finance and Facility Committee approval of the SIP. So the SIP, we have the presentation, you have it in your enclosures. I wasn't planning on going through it again. We did go through it in April. I thought I would just highlight a couple of changes from the April presentation and then certainly can answer any questions you might have. And I have team members here as well. One addition is we added a new public safety building to the SIP. So we didn't have this in April because we were in the process of conducting an advanced planning study. That has since been completed. The goal of this public safety building would be to consolidate our public safety functions. For example, the URI Police Department, our Emergency Management Department, and Fire and Life Safety, which are currently located in 3 buildings across campus. This would combine all of those into one building. The proposed funding source is RICAP starting in FY 27, and the project costs are estimated at $48.3 million over 4 years. So that's new since the April presentation. I also wanted to share, we had a brief discussion in the April presentation about the GeoBond strategy. As I think you know, we're entering into a campus master plan effort that is anticipated to take about a year. We don't actually have to update our GeoBond for 26 in this SIP. It'll be acted on next year. So the decision has been made to keep the historic quad phase 1, which was our GeoBond on the SIP last year for FY 26. We'll keep it on the SIP this year and indicate in the SIP that we submit to the state that request may change based on the results of the campus master plan. So we are very fortunate to be able to put a GeoBond request in every 2 years. And we really want to make sure that our next year ask is informed by the campus master plan. So that will be in the SIP that we submit to the state. Finally, the 26 to 30 SIP that I'm asking you to approve includes a significant increase of approximately $580 million to last year's SIP, and that is primarily a lot of those asset renewal projects. So if you remember in April, we talked about trying to make sure we put all of the asset renewal needs on the SIP, and those are things along the lines of accessibility, building envelope improvements. We just have such a backlog here at URI, so we really wanted to demonstrate that on this year's SIP. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the SIP or any of the specific projects.
Any questions? There being no questions, may I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee recommend that the URI Board of Trustees approve the University of Rhode Island Capital Improvement Plan for FY 26 to 2030 as recommended and presented in the enclosure.
Courtney, so moved.
Almond second.
Second.
I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Item number 2 is approve of URI parking regulations and recommendations to the URI Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. So this is an action item. We're seeking approval from the Board of Trustees to approve our parking and traffic rules and regulations for the Kingston campus. This is required per Rhode Island general law in the purview of the Board of Trustees. These rules and regulations were last approved by the Rhode Island Board of Governors back in 2006. So they've received a significant update. The purpose of the rules and regulations is to promote safety and mobility while on campus and ensure efficient and accessible parking for all of our students, faculty, staff, invited guests, and general visitors. The board also can approve sort of fees and penalties and violations. What we've done here in the regulations, as you see, is we've tried to point back to the transportation and parking website, which lists and updates those fees and violations. So there's kind of an opportunity to update those as needed. But essentially the rules and regulations will stay the same. And I do have our public safety and transportation and parking staff here if there are any particular questions about this request.
So by way of this approval, we're not really increasing fines or changing anything from what, correct?
No, it's really the overarching rules and regulations.
Any other comments, questions from anyone? Okay, there being no comments or questions, may I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee recommend that the URI Board of Trustees approve the parking
Joe
and traffic.
Formicola, oh, sorry. Oh, you were done.
Ahead of me, Joe's in a rush. So approve the parking and the traffic rules and regulations in Kingston campus for 2024 as recommended and presented in the enclosure. All right, may I have a second?
Maria Dutra, second.
For a voice vote, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is approved unanimously. Item C, approval of contracts in excess of $5 million and recommendations to the URI Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. So the purpose of this action item is to seek board approval under the policy on approval and execution of contracts and other binding documents for 4 items. So 1 is a new contract and 3 are change orders to existing contracts. You may recall that we've been bringing things to the board that are in excess of the $5 million approval threshold if they were a change order to something that the board didn't approve in the first place. So that's what several of these are, and 1 is new. So the first item is a new contract in support of HVAC maintenance and repair. So we are working with the state, who is in the process of soliciting and awarding a renewal contract for HVAC maintenance and repair. We expect it'll be a 3-year contract based on time and material, and the control value is, we're estimating it to be not more than $7.6 million, which is in line with our prior spend for a 3-year contract. We actually don't know who will be awarded the contract. It'll be the lowest qualified bidder. It will be selected by the Rhode Island Division of Purchases, but we're hoping the board will approve it in advance so that we can execute on the contract when it begins on July 1st, 2024. I'm happy to answer any questions about that before I move on to the next. Okay, the second is a change order to URI's contract for First Transit, which is the private entity that runs our campus shuttle services. This contract has been in place, was in place prior to the execution of the board contracts policy. It's also time and materials contract based on usage throughout the year. The current contract expires next year, and we anticipate needing an additional $400,000 to be added to the current purchase order value of $9.2 million. So we're seeking support for a change order there. Any questions?
So Abby, why are we doing this one? It's only $400,000 additional.
So if you recall, I'm very grateful that the board allowed us to do change orders on contracts up to 20% of $1 million. That was for things that you already approved, and so these are things that you haven't approved yet. So these are a change order or a contract you've never seen before. So We do have approval to execute on change orders to things that you've already approved, and we will continue to do that unless the change order is over $5 million itself, which is the next item. So I appreciate the question. And hopefully you'll see fewer and fewer of these as we've gone through and you've been able to see our significant dollar contracts over the next year or so. The next item is a change order to a contract that you have already seen, but the change order itself, because we're actually extending the contract a year, is for $7 million. So it's over the $5 million threshold. This is for Performance Food Group. It's a prime food vendor that supplies us groceries and sundries to our dining services. You did approve a change order back in April 2023 to the existing contract. We're looking to extend it for a year. So that $7 million is our 1 year spend. So we're looking for support for that change order.
So what happens at the end of this year? Are we going to go out to bid again, or is there going to be, you expecting another change order?
I expect it will go out to bid. We're having those conversations right now. So this will just be a 1 year extension. And it's the same for First Transit, the shuttle.
Abby, who's got the food contract now?
It's Performance Food Group.
Okay. Oh, missed it. Okay.
And then the last item is a change order. We have a 25-year lease of space for the Independent Square Foundation by URI. So this lease was approved back in the day by the Council on Post-Secondary Education and the State Properties Committee. The lease supports the kinesiology department. We have several departments that have leases with the Independent Square Foundation, but this one in particular is for kinesiology. We issue a purchase order based on a set monthly rate, and we calculate operating expenses. The Independent Square Foundation calculates their operating expenses in arrears and then sends us an invoice. Based on the current invoice, we estimate our operating costs at around $250,000 a year. So what we've tried to do is estimate that for the number of years left on the contract and seek one-time approval, which will be bring the contract to a total of $16 million for the life of the contract before we renew it. So that's the request for this change order.
Abby, on those 4 items? I'm dreading this. So I ask for your patience as I read all of this. It's going to be a long one. So just hang in there. So may I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee recommend that the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees approve a new contract between the University of Rhode Island and Maintenance and Repair Company as selected through Rhode Island solicitation number 24004253, effective July 1, 2024, as recommended and presented in the included. Order will be conducted by the Rhode Island Division of Purchases to the qualified low bidder once responses are received and evaluated by write-up. It is anticipated that this award will be made in mid-July, and that the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees approve a change order to the contract between the University of Rhode Island and First Transit as recommended and presented in the enclosure, and that the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees approve a change order to the contract between the University of Rhode Island and Performance Food Group as recommended and presented in the enclosure, and that the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees approve a change order to the contract between the University of Rhode Island and the Independent Square Foundation as recommended and presented in the enclosure. Now, time to go. All right, second.
Joe Formicola.
Second, Armin.
Armin, I second.
So there being no other discussion, I ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimous. Item D is the approval of amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding MOU between URI and the University of Rhode Island Foundation engagement and recommendation to the URI Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. So we have an existing memorandum of understanding between the University of Rhode Island and the University of Rhode Island Foundation and Alumni Engagement. The MOU expires on June 30th of this year, and we are seeking a 1 year extension of the MOU to allow it to expire on June 30th of 2025. The terms of the MOU will remain largely the same with what's been in place for the last 2 years, with some minor adjustments to the financial and in-kind contribution to the foundation. So the university provides funding in support of the foundation's operating budget, but also some in-kind support in the form of staff and other services. So we're just asking the board to approve a one-year extension.
Mark, you're good, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move it. Armin, this is Armin, so moved.
I have to read it.
Oh, I
Sorry.
gotta read the motion, sorry.
I'm with you, but I have to read it.
He still approves it, doesn't
I'm
matter.
reading more English than I did through 19 years of college. Go figure, right? So may I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee recommend that the URI Board of Trustees approve Amendment 1 to the Memorandum of Understanding with the University of Rhode Island Foundation and Alumni Engagement, recommended and presented, and that the board chair, president, and vice president of administration and finance are each individually authorized for and on behalf of the university and the board of trustees to execute Amendment 1 to the Memorandum of Understanding as recommended and presented.
Again, Armin, so moved.
Second, Mike Fascitelli.
I ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes and is approved unanimously. Next item, approval of modifications to the President's House and recommendation to the URI Board of Trustees.
So this is a request to replace the deck at the President's House, and per the contract between the President and URI, anything above $10,000, that's a repair or modification, needs approval from the Board of Trustees. We have tried to repair the deck and have deemed that it's beyond its useful life and is used by the President to host community and official functions. We're working actively to gain quotes through the state's MPA. We're asking support for the board to approve anything up to $50,000 to replace the deck at the President's House.
Maria Ducharme move.
Any questions? Maria, a question, or you would just?
Oh, sorry. I was taking
Stay
after
tuned.
Joe, sorry.
It's okay. I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee recommend that the URI Board of Trustees approve the repair and or replacement of the outside deck to the President's residence as presented at a cost of no more than $50,000.
I'll move it.
Formicola, so moved.
Maria was
Second, Maria Ducharme.
asked for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. Next item is approval of amendments to the Finance and Facilities Committee Charter and Calendar and recommendations to the URI Board of Trustees. Abby?
Great, thank you. So each committee of the Board of Trustees reviews their charter and calendar in April and then approves in June. So we did discuss this with the committee, but proposed changes to the calendar and charter back in April. I won't go through them again. There's just one change since April, which is that we realized that the June approval wasn't on the calendar. So we added approval of the changes to June on the calendar. So we're seeking approval of updates to both the charter and the calendar for the next coming year.
So may I have a motion to propose amendments to the Finance and Facilities Committee Charter and Calendar, including the enclosure, were reviewed by this committee at the April meeting. May I have a motion that the Finance and Facilities Committee recommend that the Board of Trustees approve amendments to the Finance and Facilities Committee Charter and Committee Calendar as recommended and presented in the enclosure.
Courtney, so moved.
Second,
This is Armin, so second.
may I have a voice vote? All in favor, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. A final item is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Courtney, so moved.
Maria second.
Voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned. This was very quick.
Good job, very
Thank
good.
you, Abby.